This is a video for the Designated Safeguarding Lead Network for Term 1 for the academic year 2021-22. This does not substitute attendance to the meetings for DSLs or safeguarding teams, and we respectfully ask that all Bristol settings who are all named as relevant agencies in the local safeguarding partnership to make representation to ensure your active engagement with the local arrangements in a meaningful way. This will help develop towards a community of practice. This video is to support colleagues to comply with their duties under Part 2 of Keeping Children Safe in Education 2021, to ensure other colleagues in their settings such as their senior leadership teams and wider safeguarding teams are aware of and follow their local and national arrangements. Here is the agenda. Updates to local and national news, updates from the local safeguarding partnership, Keeping Bristol Safe partnership, topical safeguarding issues, sexual abuse and sexual harassment and lessons learned from this term, and information from Joanna Mallison from the Project Adder. You will be able to access her contributions separately in the linked video. For the multi-agency updates in Bristol, you'll find these on the slides linked in the description. We have collated the more recent COVID updates and put them on the news part of our website. The information does come in from dribs and drabs from the government bulletins, but we've made this more accessible to those of you who do not subscribe to it. Key changes include update to asymptomatic testing and vaccination for 12 to 17-year-olds. Hopefully you've already been made aware of this, but all settings can apply for a grant for training for a member of the senior leadership team to become a senior mental health lead with a view to implement and develop a whole school setting approach. The Anti-Bullying Alliance All Together programme has now come to an end. Many settings in Bristol took advantage to develop a whole school approach to tackle bullying and have managed to get an award. If you were not one of these settings, the Anti-Bullying Alliance is running a new programme for this academic year, pending contract completion. The programme offers free access to training, audits and other practical resources. Click on the link to express an interest. Here's a date for your diary. Don't forget, Anti-Bullying Week is coming up in November. This year's theme is One Kind Word. The Safeguarding in Education team have been promoting the contextual safeguarding networks beyond referrals harmful sexual behaviour audit toolkit. From last year's audit, about 60% of you have completed this. In light of Ofsted's review into sexual abuse and sexual harassment, it is highly likely that this will be a theme for any inspection coming up. Please do prepare yourself and demonstrate due diligence by either completing, if you haven't already done so, or reviewing the harmful sexualised behaviour audit toolkit if you have already completed it. The Contextual Safeguarding Network have released a new tool which is similar but more generalised and can be used for all other forms of extrafamilial harm. For example, this would be helpful to review the setting's capacity to respond to the child exploitation, prevent or other forms of peer-on-peer harm. Low-level concerns. There is a need to highlight a change in the guidance which was issued in draft format prior to the finalised version, where it was recommended that low-level concerns could be raised to the DSL. Since the finalised version has been published in September, this has been amended to that any concern about a member of staff, including low-level concerns, should be passed on to the head teacher or principal. This is in line with paragraph 74. If you have already developed and promoted your low-level concerns policy, you may want to review and amend this and cascade any changes to staff. The Farrier & Co. guidance is a useful and accessible document. Whilst practical, this helps you tick boxes but also discusses the need for an effective culture of openness, transparency and trust to enable the organisation to identify concerning, problematic and inappropriate concerns early and act in a supportive and proportionate way. It is recommended that you read this document even if you have completed your low-level concerns policy, as it helps you develop the effectiveness of your practice, not just tick a box. I hope that you're already aware that October is Black History Month. Dominique Leong from Cottam School has kindly shared her programme of activities that can be used or adapted so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I have also included links for teaching resources for different key stages on the curriculum. Dominique chairs the Southwest faction of BAME Ed. BAMED is a community of professionals seeking to develop racial equality within the education sector. They do have a lot of resources and are always looking for more members to join a community of practice. I encourage you to check out their website if you are interested in developing this in your setting. I wish to raise to your attention the Ofsted guidance around inspecting teaching of protected characteristics in schools. This has recently been updated and amended to incorporate issues about being able to include talking about eliminating unlawful discrimination, harassment and victimisation, and other conduct prohibited by the Act. If you aren't familiar with this document, I recommend that you read it, as this will impact on your judgments if you do not promote anti-discrimination actively on the curriculum within your setting. Next week, there is a Southwest Honour-Based Abuse Conference on Wednesday the 13th of October. The key speaker is Yasmin Khan from the Halo Project, author of a police super complaint about the police's response to BAME victims of sexual abuse. Whilst on the topic of honour-based abuse, we are working with a young researcher looking to decolonialise the discourse around female genital mutilation, where many professionals are still not seeing this as a priority due to the ill-perceived notion that it is exclusively a Black or a Muslim issue and does not affect their community in which they work with. We would like support from an RSHE or designated safeguarding lead to support us to develop teaching resources to change the paradigm to focus on this as an issue around violence against girls and women, and to resonate with wider issues associated with female genital cosmetic surgery. This is where girls, regardless of race or faith, are being exposed to unrealistic expectations from mainstream and social media around how their genitals should look like, and develop poor mental health around their bodies, which may lead to them seeking elective surgery. If you are interested in supporting this work, please can you contact me at henry.chan@bristol.gov.uk. Next week is National Hate Crime Awareness Week. Why not kill two birds with one stone and meet your obligations under Ofsted's expectations around your duties to talk about unlawful discrimination, harassment and victimisation, and ensure that your school community takes proactive action. For ideas and resources, you can visit the National Hate Crime Awareness website, which is hyperlinked on the slide. There is also a local conference next week focusing on online hate and the challenges around managing this and how to tackle it. This is hosted in partnership with SARI, Avon and Somerset Police and Bristol City Council. Alternative Learning Provider Review, Consultation Co-Production Events. We hope that school leaders are already aware of this consultation, as it has gone out through the Head Teacher's Bulletin. But this is a last push. It is likely by the time you have viewed this video, many of the opportunities have already passed. But for the remaining dates, please do consider signing up and contributing your thoughts around how we as a city use alternative learning providers safely and continue to work in an inclusive and supportive way for our most vulnerable children and young people. Many of our young people who are subject to acute harm and those who have been subject to a statutory review experiencing significant or serious harm have been those who have been pushed out of mainstream education and provided with alternative learning provisions. If you have any views or ideas around what the strategy should focus on, please join or cascade dates to colleagues and email alpsoa@bristol.gov.uk for joining instructions to one of the events. Safeguarding and Education Team Updates. It is with a heavy heart to notify you that the team are experiencing significant capacity issues currently. We continue to also experience a high demand on the service, with some settings with acute need. It is likely that there will be a delay in responding to inquiries. We have had changes in the team. I'd like to welcome our new North Bristol School Safeguarding Advisor, Sarah Wooding. She has met some of you already, and I'm sure many of you will be in contact with her. If you do need to speak to her, her contact details are on our webpage under Safeguarding and Education Team. I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate our business support assistant Rose on getting a promotion, but this will leave us with less support around our business as usual whilst we recruit. This is unfortunately taking longer due to recruitment and resourcing issues in relation to recovering from the pandemic. Finally, many of you have been on a journey with us around attempting to seek funding and security of the police safeguarding notification work and the security of our data officers conducting this work. We have had limited assurances from public health funding, but not enough to cover both posts required to carry out the current volume of work. Due to the lack of agreement from statutory agencies, I've had to serve notice on our valued data officers in line with their employment rights. This means that even with funding being agreed at this late stage, there will be significant disruption or potential cessation of some of the functions around the police safeguarding notifications, timely notifications through the daily incident review meetings, MARAC and the Section 175 audits. With respect, due to our poor capacity, we encourage you and your safeguarding teams to use our website for general inquiries about signing up to training and events. Whilst we love to hear from you, you can self-serve and sign up to events from the relevant web pages. We would also like to remind colleagues that if your query relates to whether you need advice and guidance around safeguarding individual children or their families, that you speak to your locality's Families in Focus social workers for that advice and guidance. Keeping Bristol Safe Partnership updates. Keeping Bristol Safe Partnership training. Natalie Keeley, the training officer, is now in post. The advanced child protection training may need to be completed by newer members of your safeguarding teams or your DSL deputies who may have only exclusively completed our new DSL training. This Keeping Bristol Safe Partnership training is multi-agency and goes into more depth into the child protection system and how to contribute towards multi-agency assessments and meetings such as child protection conferences. We recommend that colleagues who lack operational confidence around this complete this course. The Keeping Bristol Safe Partnership Education Reference Group convened on the 13th of September. The briefing note is on our website now. Minutes will follow in the members area of the Keeping Bristol Safe Partnership website. It is important that you attempt to keep abreast of what's going on strategically, and we welcome your views and feedback. Please do use the web form on the Education Reference Group webpage on the Safeguarding and Education website to contribute. The Shadow Board are a group of young people who hold our strategic leaders to account and champion the voice of children and young people in Bristol. The group are looking to recruit, and we ask that all secondary and post-16 settings cascade and put the poster up in communal areas for young people to access. Please also signpost young people who you think will be interested in making systems change in Bristol. If you want more information and materials, please click on the link. Many of you should have already completed the annual Safeguarding Contact Survey. We will be chasing your setting if not. Due to the pandemic and changes to keeping children safe in education, it is likely DSLs and wider safeguarding teams have developed and changed. It is important that you share this with us every year so we can ensure that statutory agencies can contact you alongside your duties under the Children Act 2004 and Working Together to Safeguard Children 2018. Please note, we have recently had to rectify an issue with GDPR where we did not seek your consent to share information with our partners, even with other schools, for the purposes of supporting more effective safeguarding processes. If you have already completed the survey, we may be emailing you further to seek this consent when required. Changes to the DSL networks for the academic year 2021-22. Due to the team's current limited capacity and ongoing consideration around health and safety for COVID expectations, we will continue our virtual delivery for the rest of the academic year to ensure accessibility for those who don't want to risk meeting face to face. During the Keeping Children Safe in Education briefing in Term 6 last year, we asked you what help you needed with the new expectations for head teachers and principals and other members of the senior leadership team to understand their role in safeguarding and supporting improving the educational outcomes for children in need of a social worker. You said it would be helpful for us to produce a video resource to cascade to colleagues who cannot attend the networks. We are proposing the following changes. Instead of 3 locality-based meetings, that we hold one morning and one afternoon twilight session, increasing our Zoom capacity to allow for more participants in one session. We would create a video resource which can be cascaded to colleagues, where we feel this would be more effective in conveying key messages than sending arbitrary slides, and save DSL's time cascading information to those colleagues. Resource also needs to focus on areas identified as vulnerability through last year's statutory reviews. This includes developing resources for supporting SEN and safeguarding, as well as transitions and safeguarding for post-16 cohorts. We will be creating more professional networks to collaborate on systems change and lessons learned from serious case reviews. Learning from statutory reviews. Over the last academic year, there were quite a lot of incidents requiring statutory reviews in Bristol. We can't yet share all of the reports as they have been embargoed, so we are sharing the main themes. We had 7 rapid reviews in the last academic year. 6 of these involved child criminal exploitation and serious youth violence, where children were seriously injured, some of which were reported in the local press. There was also an incident of concern regarding honour-based abuse, forced marriage, where 2 children were taken abroad and were claiming that they were being hurt and being forced into marriage. This was reported to school, where a referral was not made to social care under the assumption that there was little that could be done. For any safeguarding issue which is extraterritorial, it is important to ensure that you continue to make referrals to statutory agencies on the basis that the child is still habitually resident. Also, there was a cross-border thematic review. This involved 6 cases of child criminal exploitation and serious youth violence in Bristol and other young people in the surrounding areas. This is on the understanding that the cohorts and the geographical areas that these children engaged in spanned South Gloucestershire and North Somerset. It challenges the effectiveness of cross-boundary commissioning work and how to support children who move and live across boundaries. Here are some themes identified in the reviews which concern education sector colleagues. There is a need to develop competency within our systems to managing issues relating to centering the experiences of those with protected characteristics for Black, Asian, minority and ethnic children and their intersectionality with having special educational needs. There is also a need to consider contextual risk and our understanding of protection in communities and the putative relationships children and young people develop beyond those who have parental responsibility. There is also a need to ensure that special educational needs and safeguarding processes are more aligned. Educational health and care plans did not contain contextual or safeguarding information. There is a reason why they are called educational health and care plans, not statement of educational needs anymore. The SEN Code of Practice has been co-produced between the Department of Health and the Department of Education, which regulates both education and social care. There is a need to break down the silos of working and ensure that sectors collaborate under their statutory duties. The risk assessments were varied in quality and effectiveness, often leading to risk-averse decisions being made. Discourse when encountering poor risk assessments led to settings using the phrase "can't meet needs," often leading children to be pushed from pillar to post. Often this shifts a problem rather than solving it. Education colleagues should consider using the escalation policy of the local safeguarding partnership with partner agencies when needs have changed or developed, rather than move the child around, which often exacerbates the vulnerability of that child. Schools alone cannot solve society's issues. We found when a child had an educational health and care plan and there was an escalation in child protection which jeopardised the placement of the child due to perceived risk, that the use of annual review was not considered in a timely way. This led to the children being out of education. This again highlighted the siloed working of SEN and safeguarding processes. This has reflected the need to develop shared understanding around education processes and safeguarding more generally between social care colleagues and local authority teams who work with special educational needs. The same can be said for other statutory agencies who often made decisions and practice which compounded the child's educational experiences. If any of the themes resonated with you as a colleague, then please consider supporting us to develop and evaluate systems of practice to overcome some of the areas of deficit. If you are interested, please contact helen.macdonald@bristol.gov.uk to contribute towards system change. Attendance updates. The Attendance Toolkit has been developed to provide schools and educational settings with a single online location to receive up-to-date attendance information. The toolkit, which is currently being updated, is intended for professional use only and can be accessed via a SharePoint site, the link of which will be available in the description. Weekly attendance drop-ins. To support the work of attendance officers and other colleagues concerned about an attendance issue, we have arranged a weekly online drop-in session every Tuesday from 11 AM to 12 noon. We would like to encourage colleagues to join the meeting if they have specific questions relating to attendance or would like to share best practice. If you wanted to find the Zoom link, please click in the description. The Department for Education Daily Setting Status Form continues to be used. This helps provide key data and information to the government and local areas about the ongoing impact of COVID-19. Please plan to have a backup arrangement to support completing the form in the case of staff absence. Temporary education arrangements. These refer to situations where reduced timetables are used, managed moves, or other arrangements where a pupil is educated at another site for at least one session per week or for a fixed term. It is important for us to record these arrangements to ensure that children receive their full entitlement to an education, that we ensure that safeguarding is robust for these children who often have additional needs, and ensuring that we are compliant with statutory expectations. There is also a need to demonstrate anti-oppressive practice in being able to listen to the voices of parents and the child and include them in decision making, and anti-discriminatory practice in being able to demonstrate that children with protected characteristics are not overly represented in this cohort. What the local authority is planning to do. We're planning to provide an online form to record details of these arrangements and track them to ensure that suitable scrutiny is made and effective advice and guidance can be provided. Section 175 Audit. We intended to get this published sooner rather than later, however there's been delay due to previously mentioned reduced capacity. But here is an update working with colleagues from the Task and Finish group of your peers. We have managed to reduce the number of questions from about 411 to 150. This is not the final figure, but the final number will depend on the inclusion of the incorporation of the new versions of the guidance. We're going to input the removed questions from the previous audit and generate guidance for colleagues and governors to be able to demonstrate what a good, adequate and inadequate response looks like to assist you with your RAG rating. We wanted to remove the task completion element of the audit. Some of you attempted to do this in record time and in one sitting. While some of you choose to do this, we recognise that this didn't help promote growth or help you demonstrate change or progress with your governance. We want to give you longer to complete, but give you regular reminders to work on progress so as your motivation isn't to complete for an arbitrary deadline for the local authority. You will submit your audit at the end of the academic year to the local authority and the local safeguarding partnership. This will give you plenty of time and little excuse for non-completion. Many of you found the use of Smart Survey difficult to work with. We will be going back to basics and send out a protected Excel sheet which you can complete with colleagues such as business managers, attendance leads and other members of the safeguarding team. We appreciate that using an online survey did not allow for delegation, so using a spreadsheet will assist you with spreading the workload and taking the collaborative approach within your settings. Team around the school. This is a reminder about the offer to schools from Families in Focus. All maintained settings and academies will be contacted by the locality business support with details about how to access task surgeries and meetings. If you feel you or your team need support with signs of safety mapping, you can arrange this with your team around the school's social worker. Due to the pandemic and changing needs of the children and families you work with, it is important to check in with you and ensure that the service is able to be adapted to meet your needs. Many of you have engaged with the service, some of you have not. As there is a lot of resource going into Team Around the School's service, it is important that this is responsive and well utilised. Please can you take some time out to complete the survey to feedback about what you would like to see from the service. We will pop the survey link in the description, or alternatively you can use the QR code to access this. Peer-on-peer harm. Sexual violence and sexual harassment. The Safeguarding and Education team have received a lot of inquiries about this. Colleagues appeared more confident in identifying high-risk concerns and being able to take action in referring to statutory agencies, but really struggled with some of the incidents which did not meet a threshold. Many of the inquiries could have been solved had colleagues completed the Brook traffic light assessment tool training. This allows colleagues to take a confident approach to assessing risk, but more importantly, taking proportionate action. If you haven't completed this yet, this may save you a lot of time and worry. Please also encourage other colleagues in the safeguarding team and those responsible for managing inclusion and behaviour to complete this. We have seen inappropriate sanctions issued to children due to a poor understanding of trauma that the child may be communicating. The Keeping Bristol Safe Partnership Education Reference Group has a peer-on-peer working group. This year we will focus on developing with partners resources for schools and colleges in managing low and medium risk concerns that do not require a statutory response. The Keeping Bristol Safe Partnership are also reviewing the multi-agency harmful sexualised behaviour protocol, alongside doing work with the Child Sexual Abuse Centre to review victim support pathways. Resources shared by the centre look to be helpful and will be cascaded when available. Locally, children with special educational needs are overrepresented in the higher acute cases of sexual harm. Current protocols and tools are aimed towards children without special educational needs. We would like to develop some resources which can assist those children with communication impairments to be able to communicate their experiences so they are not further compounded by systems which do not meet their needs and could leave them at further risk of harm due to an inability to differentiate our approaches. If you are interested in supporting and collaborating on this, please can you email jessica.curtis@bristol.gov.uk. The Safeguarding in Education team also offer you a bespoke training on tackling peer-on-peer harm in education. This will assist you with taking a whole school approach. It costs £30 a head and all proceeds go towards the high needs block. Please do consider signing up if you want to review, benchmark your current progress and take some reflective time to consider the effectiveness of your current systems. This is a half-day course and you can sign up via the Bristol Safeguarding in Education website under training and then under specialist courses. Working with the police. Lessons from recent harmful sexualised behaviour cases. Here are a few points of consideration which will hopefully be of use to you when you encounter a case. Guidance around police involvement has not changed, however, there has been local dilemmas which have required local solutions to be considered. Keeping children safe in education states any report to the police will generally be in parallel with a referral to children's social care. You need to be able to take that belt and braces approach. Where there is a report of sexual violence, which includes rape, assault by penetration or sexual assault, the starting point is that it should be passed on to the police. The best way to do this is via 101. It may appear to be disproportionate to report a young child to the police below the age of criminal responsibility, but do consider the following scenario. You have two primary school age children aged 7. One has entered a cubicle with another and has ended up digitally penetrating the other child's. This is not normal behaviour by any means and would be assessed as red on the Brook Assessment Toolkit. Now, the child who instigated the behaviour may not have intended to cause harm and would not be subject to a criminal investigation. You do have to consider where a 7-year-old got the idea to do this. It may be that that child has been a victim of sexual abuse themselves, in which case it would be entirely appropriate for that to be shared with the police to ensure that their safety and welfare are considered. This may also help you with your working relationship with the family of the child on the receiving end of sexual violence, that you have taken their concerns seriously and that you have passed their information on to statutory agencies to carry out their assessment or investigation. The police will take a welfare rather than a criminal justice approach. You should request to be part of a strategy discussion if the threshold has been met for one, where you are invited to contribute to the direction of any further assessments. There have been incidents in Bristol where children who have suspected to have instigated harm and have been identified as a perpetrator have, under the advice and direction of the police, been asked to be separated and transferred to another school. The police and social care have no further action to this, and the child who has been temporarily removed should be able to come back to school. There are a few factors to consider. 1. All children involved have a right to an education. 2. The child identified as the risk has a right to a fair trial, and there are legal processes initiated when issuing an exclusion. 3. Passing that child on to another school does not mitigate risk. Agencies should be challenged on the notion that this is only moving the problem rather than addressing and meeting the child's underlying needs. Here are a few points for consideration. Safety planning should be coordinated for all children at the point of the initial strategy, and foresight should be considered for a no further action scenario from statutory agencies' involvement. If there is no further action from the police, officers cannot enforce the children to be separated or transferred to another setting. This could risk being an illegal exclusion. Proportionate intervention should be considered first and exhausted. Reasonable adjustments could be made in terms of change of timetable, classroom setup of the lessons, and the robust use of the school environment. Make sure you agree in advance in a multi-agency context what information can be shared with and with whom, to enable you to make your own investigation should there be an event of a no further action scenario from statutory agencies. Remember, all children and young people retain their right to an education throughout the investigation time. If you need further advice and guidance around managing risk as a single agency, feel free to contact one of the school's safeguarding advisors. Ofsted review of sexual abuse in schools and colleges. In the schools and colleges visited, some teachers and leaders underestimated the scale of the problem. Settings that either did not identify sexual harassment and sexualized language as problematic, or that they were unaware that they were happening. Settings were found to be dealing with incidents of sexual violence when they were made aware of them and following statutory guidance. Professionals consistently underestimated the prevalence of online sexual abuse, even when there was a proactive whole-school approach to tackling sexual harassment and violence. Whilst I do not think the experiences and findings of the review are exclusive to those settings who were directly involved, we want to hear from you on a local level. We want to know if there's any good practice that you feel confident in sharing and contributing towards developing community of practice, or if you feel worried and concerned and you need help. What support do you think you would like from the team and the colleague contributing towards the peer-on-peer or online safety working groups? This is your opportunity to make those requests to us. Either use the QR code on the screen, or you can find the Smart Survey link in the description. Drug Education and Prevention, Project Adder. You will find Joanna Mallison's presentation on this on a separate video linked in the description. This concludes the DSL Network Term 1 video. We have included the Bristol multi-agency contributions as slides as they were typically delivered and presented by other colleagues representing those agencies. These are linked in the description. If you use Twitter, follow us at @setbristol for timely updates, and also bookmark our website www.bristolsafeguardingineducation.org, which has regular news items on the homepage.